The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language. Mature audiences are cleared to proceed.
Shall we begin? Let's begin.
James Bond is easily the best known of all cinematic spies. Heck, he's by many measures the #1 most globally recognized film character, even beating out Darth Vader for that honor. This is largely due to being the first cinematic spy hero, and also in part for his enduring presence that lasts from his 1962 debut to current day, where many spy movie fans are really looking forward to No Time to Die. I know I am. I'm Todd.
And I'm Dave, and we like to talk about spy movies.
A full decade of Bond movies transpires before the franchise sets its sights on immortality by swapping out the original Sean Connery for Roger Moore. Can Roger take on the torch? We'll take a look at his most appreciated jog in the big pants of 007, 1977's The Spy Who Loved Me, in this episode of Spies Like Us. The Spy Who Loved Me, the 1977 film, contemporary events like all Bond films. They all just deal with events that happened when the movie came out. We're going to, as always in any Bond film, we're going to see MI6 in this film, and what we guess is the KGB in this film, although neither agency is explicitly named. This is going to be our Roger Moore as Bond episode, his third outing as Bond, and seems to overall be the best regarded as all of his films. There's apparently a lot of hits and big misses in his pile of his contribution. At first, I wanted to try to find the most representative of his films. I found 5 Roger Moore Bond films ranked lists, and I put them all side by side, and basically all 5 of these people just completely disagree with each other about everything as to which is the best and the worst, except this one 4 people put this at his best, but then the 5th dentist put it at his worst. I guess I just went with this one, and we'll do, because with Sean Connery, supposedly From Russia with Love, we were told was supposedly his best. So I guess we're being as fair as we can to Roger Moore and giving him his best movie. But just noting that a lot of his films stray into really, really silly territory. We're going to reserve our personal opinions about Roger Moore as Bond for part 2 of this podcast, but I don't mind saying right now, like I just generally was fine with him.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues.
Yeah,
I remember growing up saying Connery's the best because that's what everybody says. He was fine.
We could note that our expectations were set pretty low after From Russia with Love. Neither Dave or I are like long time Bond heads, so we're kind of coming at these movies sort of fresh. Obviously we've seen films here or there,
right? We didn't care much for Connery's Bond. We were pretty harsh on the sleaze moves that he did on all the ladies.
His sleaziness has not aged well. We were so down on him. I felt, I don't know, I had misgivings, I guess, even though, like, I'm just speaking my truth. But, it did seem weird, seemed like we were, like, maybe out of step, like, is there something we're missing? But, Sir Connery did pass away just a couple weeks ago, and in the retrospectives that I've listened to on his career, they pretty much agreed with us that it's really hard to watch him work.
Right, and we gave some pretty low ratings on the last one. We were not a big fan of the Connery stuff, so you can come fight us at Facebook or Twitter.
Yeah,
we'll happily respond. Both of us will jump in on it with you.
Yeah, I'll fight for my opinions any day. This is a well-received film. Rotten Tomatoes has got it at 80% critic freshness and 76% audience. So, not spectacular, but definitely solid. Um, the film takes its title from Ian Fleming's 1962 novel, but it doesn't contain any elements of the novel's plot. In fact, Fleming had requested that no elements from his original book be used, but the two film characters of the henchman, Jaws and the bald guy, those do happen to be like pretty clear ripoffs from the Spy Who Loved Me book.
I gotta say, I really enjoyed watching Jaws. He was a great villain.
He's the star of the show, I think. He's one.
Yeah.
He's one of the stars of the show.
Just like in Russia with Love, we nerded out on the villain in that one too.
On the heavy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which was Moira.
Skarsgård.
No, Moira, help us out here. Who played the heavy in From Russia with Love?
James Bond's most direct antagonist in 1961's From Russia with Love was played by Robert Shaw.
Yeah. Robert Shaw, of course. So it's another case of the heavy overshadowing the main villain, because I do think Jaws is a lot more fun than his boss in this film. So they were going to bring Blofeld back, right? Blofeld is the guy that is like the head of Spectre, which was the main behind the scenes everything villain in almost all but one of the Sean Connery movies. The problem was here that this guy, Kevin McClory, who was one of the producers that got involved somewhere in the series, he owned the film rights to Thunderball. And for some reason that made him like have a claim that he owned the rights to Blofeld and Spectre. And that delayed the production of this film, obviously. Like if you got to completely come up with a new villain, that's going to set you
really?
Quite a bit, right?
With all the location shots and action shots, that must have been a nightmare.
Yeah, sure. But, it's just mainly you just got to get in there and retweet that story, I suppose, and what it's about. And maybe we'll get into this later. Maybe that's why I found the villain in this one a little thin as far as, weightiness and gravitas. So that's why we don't use Spectre anymore in the Bond films, except in 2013, MGM finally came to an agreement with that dickhead producer guy and got the right to use Spectre back again, so that they could make the Daniel Craig film that has Spectre in it. Yep. So it's really hard for me, with old movies, to kind of assess the budgetiness of them. But I did kind of have a feeling that this one was up there for its time. So I did a look, and I did compare to all the James Bond films, and I found a link that also it showed what they spent in real dollars. And this one is indeed straight up in real dollars. They spent 7 times more on this than they did From Russia with Love. And even adjusted for inflation, it's about 1.5 times. And I felt like it showed up on screen.
Especially the car submarine thing and the model work and the bajillion location shots. And
yeah, for sure. And the incredibly lavish final action scene.
Yeah, right.
But let's start with that car, right? The car that turns into a submarine, which I think is one of the very first things you find out about James Bond. If someone's described, well, maybe that was just me as a kid, but I think he's the guy that has a car that does stuff.
Right. Like a Batmobile.
Yeah, like a Batmobile. I did really like the Lotus car submarine sequence. One thing I noted, especially during that sequence, but I'll say it for the rest of the film too, the music was used a lot better in this film than From Russia with Love. Not that I want to compare every single little bit of this movie to that movie, but that was one of my hang-ups in Russia, and I did not have that here. And the music was very sexy and energetic, especially in the action scenes. You know, it was just appropriately matched.
Right.
But further about this submarine is, when I was looking at it, I was thinking, oh, obviously it's super, like, way before CG. But also I was looking at it and just noting, like, the size of the bubbles situation, and kind of realizing that this wasn't a model. Like, it really looked full size, and it interacts with human actors in some of the shots. So I looked it up, and man, oh man, is this shit interesting. It is an actual submarine. Well, sort of. It actually does. There's two people in it that are piloting it. It doesn't have a dry interior, so those two guys, the guy who was driving it was like an ex-Navy SEAL. Those two guys are in wetsuits with oxygen tanks, and it can pretty much only go forward, is what it can do. They used a bunch of different models to do the transformation sequence. So, you know, they had one that, you know, obviously there's one that has tires, there's one that has like half tires, and one that has the fins partially coming out, stuff like that. You know, they didn't actually build one that could transform. The car that they built itself also has an interesting future ahead of it after this movie. They put it after the movie. They did push it around and show it off in like promotional events for a bit, but then they put it in a storage container, paid for 10 years, and then just completely forgot about it. At the end of the lease, when nobody claimed the contents, it was part of a blind auction. You know, like that show where people buy storage units, blind, and then see what's in it. The people that got the card, they paid less than $100 for the unit.
What?
They paid less than $100, not knowing what was in it, and boom, it's the James Bond submarine car.
That's a nice come up.
That's really dope. And finally, currently, as of 2013, Elon Musk has bought the car, and of course, because he's fucking insane, he plans to convert it into an actual functional car submarine.
Oh, that's really cool. That'll be fun.
A very, very musky thing to do. Last note I got for you on this one. Remember the when the car comes up out of the water, and we get the one guy that's like doing that totally jokey, like he's drinking from a bottle, and then he sees the car coming out of the ocean, and he looks at the bottle, you know, like, what the hell am I drinking? Mm-hmm. That was the assistant director of the Italian locations, and as an in-joke, he shows up doing the exact same thing in 2 other Bond films.
That's a cute little inside joke.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't think that joke ages well at all.
No.
It's more of a what you would call it. I don't know. It's like a cartoon joke, but sometimes it's just cute to see what people used to think was funny.
Right.
More about the money spent on the film, and looking into how they built stuff. Another part of the film, which we're going to talk about, even though it doesn't have a lot to do with tradecraft, but really, one of my favorite parts of the movie was the big, like, everything inside the huge super tanker, the Liparus, and they built the largest soundstage in the world specifically for this movie. It's called the Albert Broccoli 007 stage, Albert Broccoli being one of the original Bond producers. And it is still the largest in the world. It's been expanded twice since then.
Oh, wow. Do they still film the other Bond stuff there?
They sure do. They film lots of stuff there. The most interesting one I saw was in Aliens, the hangar of the Sulaco is filmed on this stage.
Oh, that's cool.
Maybe that
must be a really big stage.
Because I love Aliens so much.
Right, yeah.
But it's not, even though it is the largest soundstage in the world, it's not actually big enough to hold 3 nuclear submarines. So the submarines we see in the movie are like 1/3 the size of actual submarines.
Oh, okay.
Still pretty cool. And yeah, they put a lot of money into this movie. That is everything I had to say about kind of the movie itself. And if you're ready, I'm ready. Briefing room.
I'm definitely ready.
Let's go.
Retinal scan complete. Validating security clearance. Clearance granted. You may now enter the briefing room.
So let's take it. Let's start out with the villain here, Carl Stromberg. I like the fact they keep it simple here. He likes underwater. That's his villainous motif.
Right.
You might remember quite recently in Spy Kids, I was pointing out that our Floop character, that was like the head villain in that one, like he had way too much stuff going on. He liked puzzles, he liked fingers, he liked candy stuff, he liked forced perspective stuff. I'm probably missing another couple. This is how you do it. Keep it simple. Give him one thing. Underwater. His background is really just kind of like not important or not of interest. The movie doesn't seem to be actually all that interested in this guy, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
He's an industrialist, and keep in mind, like we just said, he was kind of had to be quickly written in here because it had been the Blofeld guy who was in the original script. So maybe that's part of it. But I think his plan sucks.
It does. I completely agree.
Okay, tell me about it.
I don't understand. Like he's kind of one of those typical villains where like they're gonna save the world and start over because people suck or something. But his plan is to nuke the entire planet and let them kill each other off, and then he's gonna start a new world underwater. Um, I'm not really sure why underwater and why just. Well, I guess he's trying to kill people off to like reset humanity. But his whole like army of dudes are they working for this new world or are they just like mercenaries? And there isn't a lot of women. It's not like in A Man Called Flint, where like there was like this giant utopia full of hippies.
Oh,
and it
right,
was
yeah,
definitely could be populated. It's like a bunch of soldier dudes.
Yeah, no,
Like,
there's not a lot of women. There's no women. There's
and he
like,
doesn't have like a main squeeze. Oh wait, no, he did. He had that one, and then she got blown up. That's right.
I mean, I guess it's an open question to me if his underwater city is actually built. You know, like, and when we see his model of it in his study, it doesn't look very big. It's just like a few little tiny domes next to his big like super base, which is pretty cool. But it definitely doesn't look like there's much to it. Who is it populated? Is it gonna be populated? Like you said, is it we're guessing. I think the crew of a ship the size of the Liparus would have been about 700. But yeah, if you just got the 700 guys, and when he's at the end of the movie, when Bond comes back to his, like, even if his base is like 90% of the real estate that they have to live in under the city, like it's completely empty when Bond visits it.
Right, and how are they going to expand from that? If you're resetting humanity, you're going to want to make things bigger. I mean, maybe he has future plans, but it looked like this was his like dream utopia, Atlantis type of thing. But it didn't look like you were going to host a lot of like restarting humanity.
That said, I do like his base. I think it's pretty damn cool. I like the scene where it rises from the water. I love the paintings coming down to reveal the windows, so we can see all the water streaming down, and the way he's got his study wherever that's located. Well, actually, the study I think is located inside an aquarium of some kind.
Yeah, because you still see the fishes so that's why we weren't sure if those were windows or TV screens. But every time you're in the study, you still see the fish, even when it's above water. But what was weird was when the lady fell into the shark tank. She like fell in from the study, but the
Or from the
aquarium
dining room.
or from the oh yeah, that right. It wasn't
Dining
the
room's
main.
different than the study. But yeah,
Oh,
you're
I
right.
see.
So she does fall down.
Right.
So I think his study is near the bottom of the base.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, obviously they're TV screens, but it looks like they were meant to be windows. But if they're meant to be windows, there's some inconsistencies in what you're actually seeing through them. So then maybe you fix that by just saying, well, maybe they are just TV screens.
Yeah.
But anyways, he's not only got that big super base, he's also got his the Liparus, which is basically like an aircraft carrier for subs. Pretty badass in my opinion. It's got some kind of capability to disable subs somehow. They didn't quite discuss it, but it disables the electric systems. And I looked into that, and nuclear and diesel subs both are primarily electric driven. So that is the correct way that you would disable a sub in that fashion, is to EMP them.
Oh, okay.
He's got the classic. I don't know when it started exactly with Bond villains, but you know the classic thing about them is that they, completely over-explain their
Right.
master plan at the end of the
Let me
film.
tell you my plan, Mr. Bond.
Yeah, he definitely checks that box off.
Right.
And then he's taking off with the girl, leaving Bond to die or whatever. And he specifically says, like, "Farewell, Mr. Bond. I must admit that term has a welcome ring of permanency about it." Are they kidding? Are they laughing at themselves? I gotta think probably, because
Yeah. There's a lot of one-line zingers in this one
uh,
that you could kind of like goof around with. It, yeah. I kept rolling my eyes through the whole time when we were watching it.
did you have anything else on Stromberg?
Not really. He kind of just was there. There wasn't really anything interesting other than to have a villain and explain the point of all of this, which really wasn't that exciting.
His toys are much more interesting than he is.
Yeah.
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 So,
Especially the boat. The big boats that like swallow submarines were really cool.
yeah, no, that thing's amazing. I think that scene where it swallows the American submarine was when I really, like, for the first time in the movie, really leaned forward in my chair and started paying like massive attention.
Right.
So his plan go, like, the technicals of it. He's well, first he has these scientists develop a tracking system so that he can track submarines from satellite, and so he knows where they all are and exactly where they are. And then he's also got this thing that can capture the submarines, and then he's going to use those submarines to, launch the missiles that'll turn into geothermonuclear war. He's got a little bit of a problem, though. The plans for the sub tracking device have been stolen, or at least not stolen. Yeah, stolen. Copied. Someone took a little camera and
Right.
and got pictures of them, and those plans are now being offered up on, like, not the open market, but they're being offered to various,
The elite market,
yeah,
I guess.
to various world powers.
The elite black market.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not exactly sure like how much that interferes with his core plan, but it's a loose thread. He wants to take care of it. He knows who stole the plans initially, and that's his female assistant, and he's gonna feed her to a shark, which I'll put minus spy points on, like I pretty much always do when people find out someone betrayed them and immediately murder them instead of shaking them down for information.
Yeah, definitely a bad move. Just like cutting her off. He could have traced where the. Well, I guess they already figured out where the film was going, because he sent Jaws out.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I
So
mean,
I guess he already had the info he needed. I don't know, but he could have used her or like flipped her.
yeah, or just get more information. I mean, until you have the microfilm in hand.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm calling her Shark Bait. I don't
Yeah.
even think we ever got a name out of her.
Right.
The relationship of her to Fekish and Kalba are never made super clear in the film, but I could spin a story out of it that's at least consistent for our purposes. I think maybe she saw the opportunity to steal the plans, said, "Oh, these would be very valuable." Maybe she had a friend, Fekish, who we're going to meet in Cairo, and said, "Can you help me move these?" And maybe he says, "Yeah, I know a guy," which would be Max Kalba,
Mhm. The
the
club owner.
yeah, the club owner. But it doesn't make sense that Bond has to find Fekesh in order to find Kalba if he already knows his friend is contacting Cairo, already knows that Kalba's the guy with the microfilm, and Kalba's a club owner. He's in the phone book. Just look him up.
Right. And like when Bond gets to the club, he's just like, I'm looking for Cowba. And like just some like bus boy is like, oh, he owns this club. He's right there. You know, like that was the first thought I had when he gets to the club. I was like, well, clearly this guy is not trying to be like secretive about anything. He's literally like one of those club owners that are like, yes, I own this club. I got money. Look at these ladies in this club.
Right.
Come, I will get you a drink.
When he finds Fekesh, he's talking to Major, what's her name? Triple X. Amasova. Major Amasova.
Mhm.
He's talking to Fekish is talking to her at an exhibition of the pyramids. Also, just questions here like, what do they have to discuss? All he needs to do is say Max Kalba, club owner.
Right.
Like, I don't know what more conversation they're actually needing to be having at that point.
Right. But at some point, Bond spots him. I guess because they're not paying attention to the pyramid discussion or lights or something, so that they must be spies. But Jaws also spots him, and he runs off to some tomb somewhere to get away from Bond and Jaws and whatever. Um, Bond follows Jaws and Fekish to the tomb, but he just kind of stays outside of the tomb, and this kind of bothered me. And I'm gonna make this my number one worst tradecraft. Like Bond just stands behind a rock as Jaws is trying to kill Fekish, who's the guy he's trying to watch. Fekish tries to lock himself into like a gate that leads into the tomb. Jaws bites off the thing because he's got like super strong metal teeth or something. So I don't know why Bond just stood there outside when he could have followed them in because they didn't know that he was following them. He could have listened in on their conversation. He could have stopped Jaws from killing Fekish and gotten more information out of Fekish, or even just gotten more information out of Jaws. I don't know. It was silly. The whole thing was silly. He just waits till Jaws leaves and then goes in and finds a dead body, and that's where he finds the guy's like calendar, and he goes, I'm going to the club to meet Kalba, who I could have looked up in the phone book. So I don't know. I think this were missed opportunity for getting information on Jaws and on Fekish.
Well, I got another missed opportunity too. When he comes out, he finds Amasova and two Russian thugs. The thugs attack him. He disables them, and he just says goodnight to her. No questions.
Right? Yeah.
That's not. That's no bueno.
Right.
And and before we get out of here, minus 5 points for that. Minus 5 points also for Fekish. Like the whole reason you met Amasova in this big crowded space was for safety. And as soon as you spot any kind of threat, you immediately like run off into the ruins of the desert
Right.
where it's not safe. Like, don't do that.
Right. Yeah. Let me just give the perfect strike of opportunity for the murderer.
Mm-hmm. Wah wah.
Yeah.
I wondered why. No, I mean when they do get a chance later in the film, when they've got their hands on the microfilm, Bond's going to find out that it's been sabotaged in a way that it doesn't have the critical information. And I wondered why that was, or who exactly did that, like who along the chain. And actually, I realized it could have been any of the three people. It could have been Sharkbait, it could have been Feckish, or it could have been Kalba, if that was the chain of, handing the thing over. But
Mhm.
whoever did it was probably smart because they anticipated that someone might just try to steal the microfilm, in which case, or if you had it, you could show it to someone and it has enough information on it that proves that you have the real stuff, but
Mhm.
you're still protected from them just saying like, okay, I'll just fucking kill you and take it.
Right.
You could show it to them, then you could get payment, and then you could give up the authentic item. So I'll give plus 5 points for that. In fact, I think it's my best tradecraft for this movie.
Well, one of the things I did want to point out was when the microfilm first comes out is at the club, and Agent Triple X and 007 are talking to Kalba, and he gets a phone call, and that's where Jaws kills him and takes the, I guess, sabotaged microfilm. I, I don't know why he didn't have any guards. Like, you would think a club owner of that level would have like security, like at least watching him like all the time, and yet Jaws just makes up a fake phone call, pretending to be a service guy, and then just like bites his neck off. I don't know. I'm gonna make that my worst tradecraft number three. Not having guards as a club owner. I'm sure there's other people looking for you, and not just like private or government spies. I'm sure with that kind of money running around, you're probably involved, especially if you're selling on the elite black market.
You got to know
I
that
would hope,
people are going to come after you to get this thing.
right?
And some of those people are Amasova and Bond, but some of the other people are the guys that Stromberg sends out, which is Jaws, yay, and
Right,
the other guy, red shirt guy.
right.
It's weird, you got your two guys, and one of them is like, my thing is I have amazing, super creepy, awesome metal teeth, and the other guy's like, and my thing is I'm bald.
Right.
Not really surprised that bald guy was just turned out to be a red shirt that did not last very long in this movie.
He kind of had no purpose. He kind of was there to try and kill Bond, and then Bond, like, I mean, well, I guess the fight scene with him was kind of cool. It was a fun fight scene.
Yeah, I wasn't thrilled with it. A lot of the hits that Bond landed on the guy, like, really would not have impacted a guy of that size anywhere
Mhm.
near the way it does. But I wondered, like so many times, especially in like bad movies, this guy's waiting to ambush somebody at Fekish's house. So when Bond shows up there, the guy tries to take him out. And a lot of times in bad movies, they don't have any actual justification for why there was a guy there waiting.
Right.
But I think in this case, it's plus spy points and makes sense because since he knows that Fekish is trying to help broker the sale of the subtracker, he knows people are going to come sniffing around, and his orders are to eliminate anybody that is anywhere close to this situation. So that was all right. I think actually it's my number two best tradecraft. Not a lot to pick from here. It's a Bond film.
No, there wasn't a lot of tradecraft, let alone really good tradecraft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this girl that's working with him there, that's fuzzy too as to whether or not she's actually working with redshirt bald hitman or whether he just threatened her. What do you think?
I'm not sure. Uh, Threatening sounds pretty good, but it seems like she knew Fekish pretty well and was told to like entertain Bond and entertains him by making out with him. So it could have been. I don't see Feckish doing that, so it could have been the hitman that like threatened her. That makes more sense.
Okay. Well, if
Because she
she
tries to stop Bond from getting shot, she notices the thing.
right, so if she is an agent, she sucks at her job.
Yeah,
But if she's just someone that's been told to shut up and make out with James Bond, then that's makes a little more sense.
yeah, and she saves his life by jumping in front of the shot. So I like your theory. I didn't even think about it just because it's kind of like a blur to me. But I like your train of thought on that one.
Right. Jaws, 1,000 times more interesting. In fact, he's about 50 times. I don't know. Him and the big boat. Those are the two big coolest things in the movie. He kills people by biting their throat, ripping out their throats. I imagine with his
Right,
steel teeth, which is creepy as fuck.
right,
A guy this size could easily just snap people's necks. So
yeah,
it's a stylistic choice he's making.
yeah.
I don't personally like it, but other than that, I'm totally pulling for Team Jaws all the way.
Yeah, they were definitely milking his neck biting scenes. It was like very vampiric.
Mm-hmm.
So but it wasn't like romantic at all. So I don't think it was supposed to be. But they just had these like elongated moments where he just like slowly goes in to like chomp people's necks open. I don't know. It was weird. But I am giving him my number one best tradecraft. Uh, when Triple X and Bond jump in the van after he steals the microfilm, he he hears them talking. I guess he's got a mic in the back, or I don't know if he's got a mic in the back, or he just hears them talking. One, I don't even know why they're talking if they're hiding out in a van while their target's driving. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
he knows they're in the back of the van, so he just drives them off to like this remote ruins archaeological location where no one else is. Gets out of the van and just walks off, pretending to not know they're in there, and he just sets up an opportunity to drop a giant block on him. So when he first was driving them off, I was like, he knows they're in the van. Why is he driving them to the place that they're waiting for him to drive them to? But when they got there and it was just going there to try and kill him, I was like, oh, that's a really good move. So that's my number one tradecraft was him just like getting out of the van like nonchalantly, like yeah, there was no one just loudly talking in the back of my van.
Mm-hmm. I thought maybe he didn't need to drive all night
Right?
into the next day to
Yeah,
get to a safe spot, but
yeah. It seemed like what, like the afternoon.
at least the morning, because it's nighttime when they first get into his van, and he drives until the sun comes up. So they have the Jaws encounter there. That's where near the end of that sequence, they've gotten control of the van. They're trying to get away in the van, and we get the great part where he's like just tearing the fucking truck apart, like piece by
Yeah, he like
piece.
rips it open,
That was super
bites
fun.
in his stuff,
That was super
picks
fun.
up the
It's one of the,
tire. Yeah,
one of the best parts of the movie.
yeah, it was a lot of fun watching that.
Hmm. And he's got his thing that he does several times in this movie, where he after getting thrown off a train or crashed into a building or whatever it is, like picking himself up and just dusting himself off and straightening his tie,
Right.
which is fun. I mean, obviously the reason he doesn't talk is because he's got the metal teeth,
Hmm.
and they certainly couldn't have fashioned some kind of prosthesis that would let the actor talk. I mean, the actor himself, like, he can talk. We've seen him act in other films,
Right.
but the fact that he's just completely silent from beginning to end of the movie was also something I thought was a selling point in the menace of him.
Yeah, made him a little more creepier than he already was.
Uh-huh. And yeah, I remember like just watching the movie, I was like, like this guy should be in more movies. I mean, he survives the movie. That's another super cool thing about him. Bond at the end tricks him into falling into the shark tank, and
And then he just beats up the shark
he fucking
and takes a big chunk out of the shark's neck with
it's
his
great.
like metal teeth. Yeah.
So yeah, he survives the movie, and
swims off in the middle of the ocean like nothing happened.
I think
Yeah.
I think I think the very last thing we see is him walking up on the shore and probably adjusting his tie again. And yeah, so I was wondering, well, at the time watching it, I was like, why didn't they bring him back in future movies? Looked it up. Of course they did. They bring him back in, I think the next one, Moonraker. And
That's the one we were gonna do, but I think when you looked it up, this was supposed to be Roger Moore's best one, so we went with this one instead.
Yeah, Moonraker is supposedly one of the really silly ones, and also it was like super rushed into production. Like at the end of this movie, they say like James Bond will be back in some other name of some other Bond film, but then Star Wars came out. Star Wars is like the same year as this or something, right? 77,
right?
And
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, they did Moonraker specifically because they wanted to capitalize on space stuff because everybody was space crazy.
Right.
He does return in Moonraker. They were thinking about bringing him in even a third time because he was a big hit with audiences as well, but just something went wrong with that, and they never did. Because he survives Moonraker as well. Okay, so for part one of this podcast, we've basically covered the opposition. We gave our thoughts on the head villain, gave some good love to Jaws, and talked about the various nefarious figures trying to perpetrate the villainous plot. Join us next week when we'll talk about our hero characters in this film, those being the sultry Major Amasova, aka Triple X, and of course the always smarmy James Bond. How they acquit themselves as spies will be our points of discussion for the next episode of Spies Like Us.
As always, the best way to make sure you don't miss out on that is to hit the subscribe button on iTunes, Google, or your favorite podcast app. Also, you can find updates on our Facebook page or website, spieslikeus.net. And please, if you could give us some help, give us some feedback on rating us and leaving comments. We're always trying to improve the show, and your thoughts would be a big help.
The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.